Hello, everybody. I see everyone commenting in the chat box over there. So keep using that, and I'll keep an eye on that as we go through the presentation. Since it's already 1:02, we had a couple of technical difficulties getting started up, but we're ready to rock. So I like to first start by doing a little introduction about myself. I love this intro slide because it kind of paints a visual picture of me and my firm and my family history. I joined my family firm in 2013 when I graduated Penn State. You see that first picture there is probably around 1995. That's actually me and my brother sitting on my dad's lap, and that's actually in our current office where I'm working right now. So just to paint a picture of how long our firm has been around. Before I started, my dad was already running the firm for 40 years, and this was all will be relevant for throughout the presentation because I'm kind of going to explain how we turned our old school traditional style accounting firm to a modernized firm using technology and things of that sort. Then you see in 2013, that's when I joined my dad and my brother, and then that's me in 2024 today, and I call myself the balanced CPA because what I'm really passionate about is actually helping people like you and myself constantly just make our firms better and have a balanced lifestyle, because we can't just spend all of our time working, and we have to make sure we're focusing. I mean, I would hope we would all want to spend time with our family and do the things we love to do. I mentioned I'm a CPA and an EA. It just kind of shows that I'm a bit of a nerd. I love learning, so I'm like super eager to join webinars just like this and go to accounting conferences, because that's where I get a lot of the things I've learned over the years, and that's what I'm going to share with you here today. On a personal level, I'm an adventurer. I'm a passionate world traveler, and my goal is to go to 100 countries around the world. So that's part of the reason why I'm passionate about making my firm as efficient as possible, so I can have time to do the things that I love. So why I'm passionate about tax workflow efficiency. Sounds kind of boring, but I love it because as I've grown my firm over the past 12 years, I've been working with my family firm. We've really transformed our firm from an old school model with a lot of manual processes, no workflow management tools, and we really had no technology to help us grow our firm. So as me and my brother, when we joined my dad, we were growing the business exponentially, but we were starting to hit bottlenecks, capacity issues, and we were just getting burnt down, stressed out, just doing tons of tax returns. Obviously, this session's gonna be all about our tax return workflow, so I'm going to focus on that. But we completely transformed our firm, and it's been super rewarding. It hasn't been easy the whole time, but when I look back and see where we were to where we are now, it's been just an awesome journey. And I just hope some people here could, take bits and pieces, implement it at your firm, and hopefully, it makes a difference, because that's how I learned over the years. Here you see we're managing over 1,800 tax returns each year, and it's me and my brother who are partners, and we have 5 employees. So we have a team of 7, and we're doing 1,800 returns, both business and personal. And my real goal is to be able to handle all these returns, grow our firm, but also not stress our team out, and to improve our client satisfaction. Because my viewpoint is I want to make sure that everyone's winning. I want our firm to do better. I want our clients to get a better experience, and I want our team to be happier. So as long as I'm focused on that, constantly making our firm better, we're going to dive into all that. But I mentioned I'm passionate about just helping firms get better, because other presenters have helped me over the years. So I just want to share what I've learned. So let's dive right into it. So for current state of tax workflow. So over the years, these are the pain points that I've experienced, and I'm sure that other people here have or are currently experiencing some of these pain points in your tax season process. Whether it be data collection delays. I'm sure all of us have had clients, they upload their documents hopefully to a secure portal to get their stuff to you, or they're mailing it, but they're missing a document, so that holds up the tax season process. You can't file the return, obviously, when certain documents are missing. So we're doing back and forth follow-ups, and that just really slows your firm down. Whether it be manual processes, just relying on spreadsheets or paper-based systems. That's how our firm used to operate. Clients used to of our clients, we used to have almost the majority of our clients come into our firm and dropping off their tax documents. And maybe you still are operating like that. We still have some of our old school clients coming in physically, bringing paper documents, but then it slows down administratively. We're scanning all our documents in, which I prefer not to do. I love when clients are uploading their stuff directly to our document management tool. We use Smart Vault. I'm going to get into detail on all of these things. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions or things you want to point out or things that you like, just message in the chat box, because it's helpful for me as I go through. Some of the other pain points that we dealt with were disorganized communication. When I first joined the firm, I always say it was like the wild, wild west. We were here to serve our clients, which all of us are, but we would let the client do whatever was the easiest for them, whether it's come in with no appointments to drop off their documents, calling anytime that they wish, nights, weekends. We were basically like the 24/7 firm, and it was awesome for our clients, but it was burning out me, my brother, my dad. That was just his method. So we were trying to change the model, and just the whole point of this slide is just to, like, all of us have to identify where we have our pain points. Sorry, just checking some messages related to the presentation. So disorganized communication, like even now, like I don't give out my personal cell phone to clients, because I don't know if anyone here has clients texting them all hours of the day on the weekends. And I just don't think that's really a balanced approach to, we could all be great accounting firms and be great tax preparers and firm owners, but we have to set boundaries. So I'm definitely going to get more into that later in the presentation. Missing deadlines. So just as our firm grew and our team grew, when we were smaller, or if you're a solopreneur, it's easy to keep track of everything because everything's in your head and you have all the information. But now I'm going to go into how we use Financial Sense that actually allows the whole team to have visibility and everything that needs to get done and the deadlines that need to abide by. Obviously, like we all know, S Corps and partnerships are going to be due March 15th, and we all know the 1040s and the C Corps are due April 15th. But if you have a new hire that joins your firm, they might not know that. So before we had a tool to show all the deadlines in a clear, easy way, we would have our team asking us those simple questions to us, but it's not simple for the whole team. So just having using these tools prevented us from missing deadlines. And then probably my favorite, because I've been tackling this billing inefficiencies. So our firm, for all of time, essentially, since we began about in 1975, our tax process, we completed the return, sent the client the invoice, waited for payment, and then filed the return. 2 years ago, last tax season was the first tax season we actually billed up front. And then this tax season, we're actually sent agreements out in November. So that allowed us it's allowing us to take administrative time outside of tax season. Because I don't know if anyone out there has felt the pain points when you finish a return, you send the invoice and the client goes, "Why did my fee go up?" Or, "Oh, I think that's too much." And they're trying to negotiate the price with you on April 10th, April 15th. It's a bit stressful. So getting that out of tax season was definitely a big pain point. So once I alleviated that, I was extremely happy. I actually want to share a polling question. Give me 1 second. Because I want to just gauge from the audience. I'm going to try to make this interactive. So what's your biggest challenge during tax season? Is it data collection? Can everyone see it? Show on stage. Okay. Is it collecting documents on time? Keeping track of multiple client returns? Maybe you have a lot of clients. Inefficient communication with clients. They're texting you, calling you any hour of the day, or coming in unannounced? Or is it just having trouble getting paid? We try to be efficient, but at the end of the day, if we can't collect, we basically have to just identify our pain points. So thanks everyone for voting in here. Seems like collecting client documents on time, I would say that's probably our biggest pain point too. We have a good system that we'll get into, but it's still hard to get clients to give you everything you need. All right, so let's see. I'll keep this open for a few more seconds just to see if anyone else wants to put their vote in, but it seems like the overwhelming majority is collecting client documents on time. So I'm going to get into this for sure later in the presentation, but I'm going to keep doing more polling questions because I like to keep everyone engaged and kind of see what everyone's needs and interests are. This is my first season, so I have no idea. Okay, Nicole, I see your message. We're going to get into all your questions here, and we're going to have time at the end to go through any questions as well. All right, so I'm going to close this poll. Let's get to the next slide. So I wanted to leave a little space here. If anyone wants to maybe put in the chat, like where are your workflows breaking down? So I'm going to just take a second to see what people have to say, because I see obviously client communications, but if there's any specifics, like I mentioned, I want to make it interactive because my goal is really to be as helpful as possible. I don't want to just talk at you. I want to really help. So Nicole, it's your first tax season, so we're going to go from all the years that I learned. We had so many pain points in making our tax process, but we're constantly changing it. Every year we're changing this and changing that. So I'm sure there's people on this webinar who have better systems than us. So it's good to share information. My expectation being applied at my VA level with client communication and tax management. All right. A lot of good feedback in here, being notified. Awesome. So I'm going to get right into it. Thanks everyone for putting notes in the chat. And we're going to have time at the end where you could actually jump up on stage and ask questions live if you'd like to. So I'm going to go into the key stages to optimize your tax workflow. So for those of you who've been preparing returns for years or you're new, we all know that a similar process to this must be adhered to. Essentially, first step, which seems like it's a pain point for most of us on the call, is data gathering, making sure the clients are giving us what they need, giving us what we need on time, giving us complete and accurate data. Not always the easiest thing. Excuse me. And then once we get the data, preparing the return, reviewing the return, if you have a reviewer level, and then filing of the return. So, and as I mentioned, as I go through this, I'm just going to talk about our process. It's not the only process. I'm sure everyone has their different ways of doing things. And that's the cool thing. Once we actually go into the template I'm going to share, you'll see it's very customizable. It's just a template and you could change it up however fits your firm. So this is just what we do. So from the data gathering part, we use Smart Vault. And the reason we have a pretty cool system is we use Smart Vault for document collection. So, and it works really well because our tax software is Lacert, so into a Lacert. So there's an integration between Smart Vault and Lacert. So let's say this tax season, if we get 300 new clients, what happens is Lacert and Smart Vault sync together. So automatically the folder structure is going to get created for each of our clients, each of our new clients. Any recurring clients, their folders are already created from years prior. So it makes it a really easy way for us to go back and forth with the clients, and they upload their documents right into their Smart Vault folder. We know who it's for. There's no confusion. We have the folder tree broken down by the way we designed it. So we have folders for client where they upload their documents. We have folders where we upload their tax return directly from our tax software, which we'll get into in the filing stage. But probably the best tool for gathering the data is Lacert will create a tax organizer. So for existing clients, Lacert will automatically pull all the data from the prior year and basically do a pro forma and basically show, last year you gave us 3 W-2s, 2 K-1s with the names, interest statements, dividends, and whatever. So we don't, because in the past, before we use this tool, we used to have to look at a client's return and say, oh, you had these 5 items. Because a lot of times clients are asking because they're doing this once a year. They don't really remember. So Lacert's going to automate that process by making that customized organizer for each client. And then where I really think the tool is really powerful for gathering data is if you have a client with, let's say, a Schedule C and a Schedule E, it's going to actually show exactly what they provided the prior year. So they'll show their income and their expenses on their Schedule C, and then they'll have a blank column. So it makes it really easy for clients to transpose their data, whether it's they're doing their own QuickBooks, if you're doing the QuickBooks, that wouldn't really matter. Or if they're, send whatever way they keep their bookkeeping. I don't want clients uploading any type of file that we have to decipher. So they're like, oh, well, I have this Excel sheet that I keep track of my books. That's not really an efficient way for us to get their data. We want them to transpose their data into our formats to save us time. So that's why that tool is really awesome. It does most of the legwork for us. So essentially in the beginning of tax season, we're going to upload all our client organizers directly in a Smart Vault. Clients go there and it's basically their checklist, exactly what they need to provide us. If they have anything new, there's note sections where they can let us know about that. I went a lot on data gathering because I think that's where a lot of our pain points are based on the poll. Then when it comes to preparation, I think this is an easier step because getting the documents is the hard part. So now then we have the preparation stage. Typically, our team, we have by level, so we'll have someone doing the preparation, and then once they complete their steps, we're going to get more in detail on this when we get to the actual template. But once they complete their steps, it's going to go to our reviewer, and then we're going to go to the file, to the filing. And then filing we do right through the tax software naturally, and we send the 8879s right through the tax software, and we're going to upload the return, the finalized return, right into Smart Vault. So then clients has 24/7 access. So that's just a quick recap of the overall tax flow, but we're going to go into detail on this. And I'm pretty sure I have another polling question. Yeah, so let me post this. So how do you currently track your tax return workflow now? Does anyone here use Financial Sense already? Are you using spreadsheets, manual tracking in some way, like maybe in Excel? You have no formal system, you get emails or clients come in and you just start working on the returns. I'm just curious, maybe post into the chat because I didn't know what all the options to put there. Canopy, Carbon, maybe Switch, yes. I'm just checking. So any other project management tools? Because like for our firm, we were manually tracking all this for a long time. We implemented Financial Sense about 1.5 years ago, and it just completely changed our firm because it makes it so much easier for us to track everything. You don't realize like an Excel spreadsheet just isn't powerful at all, and it doesn't change. And we'll go into that with the template. Thanks everyone for voting. I see most people have already responded. Yeah, so most people on the call are using Financial Sense, so that's awesome. So when we get into it, I could get more in detail of how I use the tool. No formal system and other. Okay. All right, thanks everyone for voting or taking the poll. All right. Make sure I didn't skip anything. Okay, case study. Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, the case study is about how we changed our firm using tools like Financial Sense. But before we implemented a lot of the tools that I already discussed, we're going to get into more detail on all of them. But when I first joined the firm, we were doing everything manual. You know, clients were, as I mentioned, they're coming, bringing in paper documents or mailing documents, faxing documents, emailing documents unsecure. And at the time, I just thought that was the way until I met other people and they were saying, use this tool, use that tool. And then I tried it out myself. And then I just realized, how did we ever operate without these tools? Lack of tracking, communication chaos, which I already got into, just clients texting, calling, setting. We had absolutely no boundaries set up. And I just thought that was the way that an accountant was supposed to operate. Take your clients' calls whenever they call. If you're in the middle of a project and the phone call rings and they have an emergency, you stop what you're doing. That's how I used to operate. And then I just realized there's a better way. And then billing delays. We used to, probably the most frustrating thing is when I'm, in the heat of tax season, I'm working weekends, I'm working late, I'm getting a lot of returns done. And then a client has pushed back about the bill. And I'm like, and you're already stressed out. You're not in your best. You're like typically on April 10th, you're not feeling the same way you're feeling maybe this time of year. So I just hated having those conversations. So billing up front now has been just unbelievable and like just streamlines operations. Now I'm like more excited to work on the tax returns. I'm like, hey, this client already appreciated my time. They appreciate the work I do. They already paid and signed their agreements. So like I'm going into preparing the return with a better mindset. And I'm like, they're seeing me as a valuable accountant or CPA, and I'm seeing that as a client who values me. So I want to give them even better service. I don't know if anyone feels that way. If you don't collect up front, and sometimes you're doing collections in the summer is a little frustrating. And we just used to have stressful tax seasons. It definitely wasn't like people think I'm crazy, but I actually say I'm looking forward to tax season because as we make these changes, I'm actually excited to see how we could get more done in less time, not work less weekends, work less hours, and do more for our clients. So as I mentioned, so now we're streamlining our data collection, the way we have our clients upload to a secure portal. We're tracking all of our workflow through Financial Sense. So now it's really easy for me to see what the team's working on, because as our team grew, that was probably my biggest pain point. I never knew what anyone's working on. Right now, our firm's all in office, so I would actually be talking to the team and going up and seeing what they're working on, where now I could be anywhere in the world and I could log into Financial Sense and see what people are working on, which I absolutely love, because my goal is to eventually be remote and I want to travel the world. So I want to be able to work from anywhere. Some people here are probably already fully remote, which is awesome. So I'm looking for more tips for that. Centralized communication. So now our clients know how they should communicate with us, and our team is able to communicate all through Financial Sense, which we're going to get into. Upfront billing I mentioned, and then just really the goal is having an efficient tax season, happy team, and happy clients. All right, I touched on a bunch of these tools, so if anyone has questions about any of them, feel free to put in the chat. I think I actually have a polling question I'm going to launch about, because I want to know what tools you use that are in this tech stack, or none of the above. So let me just find this. Here we go. And I'll go through this as you're voting. So is anyone using Smart Vault? We use that for our document management. Financial Sense for our workflow tracking. Anchor is what we use for engagement letters in our billing. So it just automates that. We used to do manual billing. QuickBooks Online, if you're doing bookkeeping, maybe some on this call are not doing bookkeeping because it's a tax return workflow workshop. Listserv is what we use for tax prep. I know there's a bunch of tools out there, so if you're using something else, you could feel free to put it in the chat. Just kind of want to get an idea if people are using these tools. Awesome. Yeah, and as we've grown our firm, it's not like we implemented all these tools in 1 year. It's been a 12-year journey. When I joined, we were using Listserv already. So like each year we try to implement maybe one new piece of technology and implement that, because changing too much at once could kind of bog down your system. So I wouldn't recommend that, but that's just how we did things. Cool. So it looks like a lot of people are using Financial Sense and QuickBooks Online. And I'm sure, I know there's a lot of different tax softwares out there. So Canopy, I see Dan, you had a question. How many people are using Financial Sense on my team? We have everyone using Financial Sense. And that's one thing that I learned over time too, is we used to try to, when you're growing your firm, you want to, save as much, like not paying all these tech fees. So we were trying to see how we could use tools without having every user be active. And then it just started like slowing down our team. So we're just like, it's worth having the efficiencies. And now the team is so much more productive. So we have 7 people. If you didn't hear that in the beginning, we have 7 people on our team. So all 7 people and are all in Financial Sense. We know what everyone's working on. Otherwise, it's really hard to use the tool if you don't have everyone on it. So let's see. All right, cool. Let me close this poll. Thanks for answering here. So I'm going to go right through here. So then why Financial Sense? I see a lot of people are already using it, so I could kind of breeze through this a little bit, but your centralized workflow tracking, you could see everyone's tax return progress at a glance. We're going to go into detail on actually showing you it in this presentation. Automated task assignment. So when the projects create, it's going to automatically assign the task to maybe your prepare level staff is going to be set to the preparing data entry tasks, where your reviewer is going to know to be assigned to the reviewer. So you don't have to assign that yourself. The project's already built that way. Deadline management, you'll see the projects when they create, they're automatically going to set deadlines for both, the IRS deadline, April 15th, or the internal. Hey, if client uploads their stuff, I want to complete. It has to be done internally by the, entry level data entry has to be done within maybe 2 weeks or 1 week, whatever your parameters are. And then just team collaboration. So now someone's working on a return and there's something new and something complex, they could just ping me right when they're working on the project, like, hey, Nick, I need help with this specific stat. So it just makes it really easy. Okay, that's for you. Sorry, I'm just trying to read the chat and do the presentation, so bear with me. So the tax season workflow template, I mentioned all these, I'm just gonna breeze through it. We're gonna go through the data gathering, preparation, review stage, and filing stage. So, and that's the template, but we're gonna go right into it. I want to actually do one more polling because I want to see how many individual returns everyone's preparing, just to have an idea. All right. Yeah. So how many personal returns does your firm file annually? Less than 100, 100 to 500, 500 to 1,000, 1,000 to 2,000, 2,000 plus. Just so we're going to do and this is just personal returns, because then we're going to do the same poll a little later just for business returns. It's a majority of 100 to 500. Okay. Right. I'll leave it open for a few more seconds, but 100 to 500 looks like the majority. Our firm's we did 1,600 personal returns last year and about 200 businesses, just to give you a frame of reference. So when I'm building our workflow, we have different pain points, the scale of how many clients you have and the services you're offering. So keeping in mind, when I go through this, you might say, hey, I've left less than 100. I could have a more specified workflow, where ours, we try to make it as general so we could catch all 1,600 clients. So keeping that in mind. But thank you for voting. We'll go right into, and don't worry about these links because they're actually shared in the resource center. That's shared. So if you go over to the side, you'll see the resource center. You'll be able to see my link to the 1040 tax return template, which we're about to show you, the business tax return template. There's actually a link to my last session I did with Financial Sense at WorkflowCon, and you'll see, you could get the slide deck, and I have my tech stack in there. So feel free to go in there. So people want to know why I use Financial Sense with SmartVault. I'll go into that as you see the presentation, as I go into the next slide. So, but yeah, so go to the resource section. If anything, I'm going too fast, you could get access to all this, especially, the tech stack. So if there's any of those tools that you want to learn more about, there's links in there. So just check that out. So as I mentioned, this is just a view I know 50% of you said they use Financial Sense currently, and the other 50%. So just keep in mind, I have to, cater to everyone. So make sure everyone has an idea of how Financial Sense is used and how we use it. So, and this is all demo data, so don't worry too much about what you're seeing. But from a standpoint of just seeing the product, so this is the bird's eye view. So when you log into Financial Sense or anyone on your team, you see every project that is open, where the project stands in the completion, and that's what that purple bar is. You see the client name, you see who it's assigned to. That's actually cut off. You'll see that after. You have the due dates, and you have what I absolutely love is the tag. So if you see the red tag, there's waiting on client. So we already know that now the team, I don't have to ask the team member, hey, why is this tax return not completed? I could see right there, it's waiting on client. So we can't move forward because the client hasn't provided something to us. Whereas I see it, John Smith down there is in data entry. So now if that's sitting there for a while, I'm going to ask the team member, hey, why is this sitting in the data entry step, and why is it not moving forward? Oh, hey, I'm a little bit busy. I have too much on my plate. And it opens some conversations to learn about what's going on in an easy way. And then we have the interview, and you could basically, and the cool part is you could make any tags that fit for your firm. So then my shared templates in action, I just highlighted for the demo data. These are the two templates we're going to go through, but I love the search tool. So now I could just put BBPC for Boscia and Boscia PC. So I could easily see which projects I need to go over. So, or I could type on my name, my client name, and it's a really powerful search tool. So you could find, because the bird's eye view sometimes could look a little bit overwhelming. You're like, oh my God, there's so much stuff, but it's very easy to sort through, and there's all kinds of filters you could use. On here, you could see we're going to go through two. We're going to go through the 1040 return for Bill Gates. I wish he's not actually my client, but that'd be pretty cool. And then you got Apple Inc. So also not my client. So as I said, demo data. But and then so we're gonna, and then you see the due dates are going to be March 15th, April 15th. Those are automatically set in the system. So nothing earth shattering, but it's nice so the team knows when things have to get completed. And you'll actually see the way we start our workflow, you'll see the start dates here are December 9th, which is yesterday, because the way what starts our workflow is we actually send all our agreements out through Anchor, and Financial Sense has an integration with Anchor. So once an agreement is signed in Anchor and they sign and pay, it automatically creates the project. So in here, these two examples, we're assuming that both of these clients signed their agreements yesterday. They're saying, hey, Nick, we want to work with you this tax season, and we're good to go. Where if the client signs it January 15th or a later date, that's when the start date will be. And it kind of shows me which clients were more eager to get their stuff done. So that's where it's cool using just having tracking. So in the past, when we would have clients come in and do manual tracking, we wouldn't track when they brought their stuff in or when they paid. So now we just have visibility on what's really happening. And it's really helpful. So let's get right into the first project. So now we drill into, this is our 1040 workflow, sorry. So as I mentioned, this project's going to create right when they sign their agreement and they pay. So before that, we're not even looking at them. So now all of our projects are creating now as clients are signing today and paying. So these projects are automatically creating in our Financial Sense. So this is the overview. We're going to go into detail. I want to show, I missed this in the beginning, but if you scroll down, we have the client tasks that are automated. So it's really cool. So now what we do is, this is an automation. When the client signs a return, the project's created, and we set this to email the client one day after. You could set it however you see fit, but I like one day after. So now it's going to basically, this client, Bill Gates, is going to get an email basically saying, hey, thanks for signing your agreement. The next step is to go to Smart Vault and get your tax organizer and complete it and upload your tax documents to Smart Vault. Once that's completed, before we had to send reminders, which sometimes with 1,600 clients, we still have to send reminders, but this is an automated reminder just saying, hey, go to Smart Vault, because a lot of our 1040 clients are only coming once a year. So they don't remember. They'll say, what's that website I have to go to? So this is a cool tool to automate that. And then step one would be, what happens is once they upload their documents, our admin, you see, these are not my actual employees, but you'll see the automations here. You see CG has to do the first step. So once the documents are uploaded, our admin will check off the first box. And what actually happens, you'll see the tags there, client info was received, and we're confirming that it was received. So now once that tag goes there, now we know our prepare level staff, it's their job to start preparing the return. So they're going to go through the documents. We're going to, and it's nice because a lot of these tasks, when you're doing tons and tons of returns, you know the steps you have to do. You don't have to look through every single step of a return, but it's really helpful when you have a new hire who doesn't know all the steps. Instead of you teaching them things that might seem basic to you, they have an outline of exactly what needs to get done. So now we could have a new hire this tax season. They know, all right, I have to prepare the return. What does that entail? I'm going to review the prior year's data. That's always a step one. They have to make sure they're reviewing prior year. They're going to verify and organize the documents, because I don't know about you, but we always have clients. We're about to be in the 2024 season, preparing 2024 returns. I know it gets confusing with the years, but a lot of times clients were uploading their 23 W-2s. And if you're not careful to review that, we find out that we're entering the 2023 data into the 2024 season. So I would just, our team knows to review the files, make sure there's everything we need in there. And then we're entering all the data and then checking the diagnostics. So I know Lacert, I would assume other tools have the same thing, but when we're preparing the return, there'll be diagnostics of any critical issues in the return. That means it can't get filed for whatever reason. So the preparer knows to go through those. And it's also a learning experience. If there's diagnostics that they cannot clear, they'll come to me or the reviewer level team to learn how to fix those diagnostics. So throughout tax season, everyone's getting more and more efficient preparing the returns. So then this is the prepare. So we cover the data gathering stage, the preparation stage. We have all the documents. We go through, check everything we need. So then here we also have check if there's any missing data. So what we do there, you could request documents right through Financial Sense. We don't use the tool that way because Lacert actually has a missing data tool. So what happens when we go through the return, the preparer is done, they'll scan through the return to make sure that there's nothing missing. Let's say a client forgets to give you the real estate taxes or a K1. You could right click, put a missing data, and then you could actually shoot an email directly from the tax software with an itemized list of everything they're missing. And the reason why I used to do this part myself, and it really slowed me down. When I look back, I'm like, why was I doing this step? So now the preparer level team member is going to get that data before it moves forward. So, because a lot of times you're waiting around for clients to give you the documents. So I absolutely love that. And obviously, if there's nothing missing, they could just check client email sent and then receive missing items, and then it'll go right to the reviewer. So I'm just going to stop for a second to see if there's any questions on what I just went over. Do you have templates for Canadian tax? So unfortunately, I don't. Sorry, but the cool part, the template library has a ton of templates. So I think I only uploaded two for this presentation, but there's so many other accountants out there who have been uploading their tools. So there's going to be a lot out there. As I said, Tosin shared the one that you could use. So. But hopefully what I'm going through is still helpful, even if it's in Canada. Cool, so let me go to the next step. So now we're going to assume all those tasks were completed by the preparer. So now it's going right to review. So we're going to do a higher level review of the return, make sure it looks like cross our T's, dot our I's, and then we're going to review the return. You see, I just put the arrow just so you could see what I love that now I could see it's in review stage. And then once the review stage is done, we're going to send the tax return to the client. So we send right through Lacert, we could click get e-signature. It automatically sends the 8879s for federal and all the states that they're filing, automatically place the signature line. So it makes it very easy for them to sign. Joint return, it's going to send a husband and wife separately, do the KBA authentication and all that stuff. And then the tax return is going to be attached. So they're actually going to review the tax return before they sign. And then once they sign, it's going to get sent right back to Lacert, and it basically says e-signature completed. And then I know the whole process is done. All that's left is for me to e-file the return. And you see here, so we'll check off e-signature request sent. It's ready to submit. And then personally, I still like e-filing the returns. It's either we split the client list. So if my brother has a list of clients, I have a list of clients. So we're doing that final review just to make sure everything looks good. When we e-file, we want to make sure we're, issuing their direct deposit to their bank account or auto paying their taxes, because no one wants to forget to check a box and then their taxes don't get paid and you're getting letters in the summer, things like that. I'm sure anyone out there might have dealt with that, some of those pain points. So you learn over time to just do that last review before you do the e-file. And then the last thing we do is upload the return to Smart Vault. And that's super easy because we literally just click the return, do print, and it prints directly to Smart Vault. We used to print the returns out and mail them out to clients when I first joined. So that alone has saved us a ton of time. Having you review the template prior to downloading. I'm not sure how you could review the template prior to downloading. Maybe Tosin could jump in on that, some of those questions, but. And sorry if I'm not answering your questions, but we're gonna have time at the end to go over them. So I'm going to jump into the next polling question that I mentioned I was gonna run. I want to know how many business returns your firm is doing. Less than 50, 50 to 150, 300 to 500, or more than 500. So I mentioned we're doing about 200 business returns. So most are less than 50. Actually, it's pretty close. Let's say ballpark, we'll say like about 100 returns. We're doing about 200. Something more than 500, that's a lot. Awesome. And as I mentioned before, it's important to think about the scale of your business, because if you're doing a lot of returns, it's harder to make customizable steps for 500 plus businesses. So standardizing your procedures as you have more businesses is very important. And I absolutely love just using Financial Sense, because it allows us to just track everything in an easy way, where before we used to, like, if a client would not follow our standardized procedure, say uploading to Smart Vault, they might drop their documents off, and then we would forget to start the process. And then they call us back in 3 weeks, like, hey, is my return done? And we're like, oh, we never even started it. So having that standardized procedure things are still going to fall through the cracks, but it's best to have the standardized procedure so you could do your best to, make sure all your clients are happy. But thanks again for voting. Looks like most people are around, let's just say ballpark around 150. And again, these links are in there. I just use this for a polling question. So for our business returns, what we try to do is to try to make our business return process as similar to our 1040 process. We used to have two completely different processes. I'm like, this doesn't really make sense. Like, why would our businesses not get treated the same way as our personal? We need different information, but the process should essentially be the same. So as I mentioned, first thing is going to happen. Apple signed its agreement yesterday. This project is going to automatically create. You see, it's a template. So I named it 12/31 year end for a partnership or an S corp. Pretty much the same steps. If you have different steps for partnership and S corp, when you take this template, if you take it, you can modify it, change it however which way you'd like. So that's a really cool part about it. So I have the same process. I just didn't zoom in here, but you see the client task. The first thing, they're going to sign the agreement. Next day, they're going to get an automatic email reminder right from Financial Sense. And it's basically going to just say, instead of fill out your tax organizer, it's going to say upload your financials. And we always ask for comparative profit loss, comparative balance sheet, because it's an easy way with balance sheet. I like being able to see the new assets that they purchased over the year, if they had any, obviously. But a lot of times, if we don't communicate to the clients what works, what we need, the clients are going to do what they think. So I think that has been the biggest learning experience for me over the years, is like just educating your clients, because most clients are happy to follow the procedures that you want. But if you don't let them know, they're just going to do what they think is best. So I don't know if anyone has felt those pain points and clients trying to do things any which way possible, but this standardized that process for us. I'm going to go back. I didn't take as many screenshots of this one because it's a similar process. But as I mentioned, we're going to receive the financial statements, make sure that we have what we need. Once that, the admin's going to check that off, then it's going to go to data entry stage. We're going to review the financials, and we added this step in because we used to just say enter the data, but then sometimes the new team member might enter data, and you look at the balance sheet and there's negative balances, negative note payables, and just things that might look out of whack. Maybe there's a no income and a $400,000 loss. Typically, I like to reach out to a client to just say, hey, are these financials correct? If something looks off to me, rather than prepare the entire return to then look back and say, we have to redo this return after we spent the time. So, I like putting 2 steps for entering the profit loss into Lacert and the balance sheet, because sometimes they don't upload one or the other. And a lot of times the teams might have more questions on the balance sheet. So I break those steps out so they could put notes in there and shoot me a message. Hey, can you check this out for me? I want to make sure this is right. Then I like to make sure I'm following the federal and state extensions if they need. Speaking of standardizing your workflow, we have a deadline that we clearly communicate to our clients well before tax season, that we need your financials by January 31st if you want to be filed by the March 15th deadline. And for personal returns, we need your stuff by March 31st if you want to be filed by April 15th. Took us a lot of time because we used to have clients walk in like April 10th and say, can you get my return done? And we used to, but it just wasn't really a good model. So setting those boundaries has been like a game changer for our firm. So I don't know if anyone else sets deadlines for their clients. If you don't, you have to, or it really should. I recommend it. And most of them times they're like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense. There's really no pushback. But anyway, going through this, if we need to file the extensions, making an estimated payments, I like to make sure we're checking those off if needed. Then the reviewer is going to review the entries. Everything we do in all of our tax processes, someone's doing the entry, someone's doing the review, and then we're actually I'm doing a final review. So we have our preparer, a reviewer, and then I'm doing a final review, or my brother is doing a final review, and then we get the return out the door as efficiently as possible. And then on here, I'd like something like confirm K1 export. We get a new client. Sometimes you do all the work, everything's perfect, and you forget to check the box export K1 into their personal return. So like little things you might as well put into the template, even though your team members who do it a lot, they're going to know. It's really for the newer member on the team who might not know what that step is. Assuming your tax software is Talk, where you could export your K1 into your personal return, that is. Do the final review, send the e-signature request, e-file the tax return, and upload to SmartVault. Exact same process as a 1040. And as I mentioned, we do a lot of returns, so I'm trying to make our process for the businesses as close to the 1040s, so there's no confusion. This we went over. So I have another polling question for. All right, so I just want to see, because this is the template library. I want to see what types of templates would benefit your firm most. So obviously here we're going over both individual and business tax process, but like what would be of value to you in your firm? And you're like, client onboarding, I see instantly a lot of votes for client onboarding. Year-end tax prep checklist, if you're doing bookkeeping, that's really valuable. Monthly bookkeeping task lists, we have both of those templates that we use internally as well. It would be a very long webinar to go over all of our templates, but these two I think will be plenty for the hour. Document request email templates, and then custom client communication templates. And the reason why I bring this up, because we're only going over 2 of the templates that for this webinar, but there's tons of templates. So go search. Like I see people already in the chat are asking for templates, and Tosin is adding a bunch of links to different templates that have already been shared. And the cool part is people are constantly updating new ones. So there's probably templates in there that I learned from. You take a template and you're like, oh, this step might not work with my firm, which is completely fine, but you might get an idea of like, oh, we don't do this step. That's a really good idea. And you add it into your workflow. So you can either use it for your own workflow or just use it to improve your firm or just to learn something new. Cool. So mostly client onboarding. I think onboarding is definitely a very time consuming process. So having a good system there is really important. All right. Thanks again. So let's go. We have a little bit of time. Okay, so we're close to the end, about 10 minutes left. So I want to save time for questions. So actionable takeaways. This is the last polling question, I promise, but it is helpful. Because I want people to come away and actually take action. Like it's great to learn all these cool tools and processes, and there's something you might want to change. So I want to know like what's the first step that you're going to take maybe after this webinar or this upcoming tax season. Like what do you know that your firm really has to do and you're going to commit to yourself? Because at the end of the day, if you don't do anything, it's not going to affect my firm. But like the whole idea is you come here, you learn something, you actually make a change. And then a year from now, you're like, oh my God, this change really changed our firm. And now things are so much more efficient and my team's happier because they're not dealing with X task. Like the beginning of the presentation is identify your pain points and first identify it, and then how can we fix them? So standardizing your workflow with templates and checklists. I think standardizing your workflow is the most important thing because it's especially if you are one of those who had said you're doing over 500 business returns, you have a big firm, you definitely have to standardize. Automate the document collection, centralized task tracking and deadline management. Yeah, that was huge for us because we used to have all of our documents all over the place and no one knew what was going on. As the team grew, it was just so much miscommunication. And that's really where we dropped the ball, not in getting the work done. It was just communication errors, usually what causes the most problems, honestly. Setting up recurring workflows for better year-end seasonal preparation and other. So I'm just looking to see if I'm curious what the other you want to do. Maybe improve collections, something like that. But yeah, so these are my actionable takeaways that, change our firm. So like, I hope that people on this call found something useful. It took us 12 years. We're still making a lot of changes. There's still things that I haven't changed that I want to change. So we're constantly improving. So just keep that in mind. Like, as long as you're doing something each year, whether it be big or little, you're constantly getting better, especially because of competition. There's just so many people out there like getting into the space that, we have to keep being like cutting edge. So I'm going to go the last question. I'm going to go right. I see there's a lot of questions in the Q&A. So let's get right into it. Maybe we could let people, if someone wants to raise their hand and jump in, actually ask a question live. Tosin, can we still do that? If so, you could let someone up on stage. Oh, you're launching it. How do you know what to charge a client without preparing the return? Great question. As you get more experience, depending on how many returns you have, maybe having like a checklist of all the different forms. Typically, that's how we like doing it. Like this lister, when we prepare the return, it will generate cost per schedule to calculate the return. And over time, we could kind of ballpark now. When I see a return, I get a new client, I'm going to basically say, all right, this person has married joint, 3 kids, or Schedule E and a Schedule Z. All right, that's going to be about $1,200. It's not the picture perfect way, but it's still a good way, because I think our pain point of switching to upfront billing was afraid that we were going to not price properly. But the amount of administrative time we were doing in tax season for collections was really what slowed us down a lot. So, but pricing takes time for sure. Why do you use Smart Vault for document management instead of using Financial Sense native document transfer? So great question. We've had Smart Vault. That was like the first tool we implemented back in 2019. So when we implemented Smart Vault, COVID happened actually. So then clients didn't want to use the tool, and then they started coming to the office, dropping their stuff off. COVID happened. Now they had to use Smart Vault, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is such an easy tool to use." So I just absolutely love using it, and it's hard when you have a big firm. Like we have 1,600 clients. It's hard to switch. So like you have to determine when you do make a switch, like is it worth it? So like I love the clients like using it, they're comfortable using it. So we're just going to stick with Smart Vault for now, and we love it. And it syncs with Listserv, which I love. How do you switch your clients to prepaying? So last year I sent out a reminder to clients in January 15th saying, hey, this year we're going to start collecting up front. And if you pay in advance before we start your return, you're going to be locked into last year's rate instead of raising fees. Because in my mind, I was more worried about having a good workflow. So I wanted to pay up front because I knew how much time it would save us. And it was awesome because most of the client of 1,600, maybe I think 50% paid within the first 2 weeks when we sent it out. So that was like an awesome switch. And then this year, but then one of the pain points that I realized last year was I'm going back and forth answering questions, explaining why we're billing up front. So this year doing it in November has been awesome because I have a lot more time to explain to the client. I basically tell them, I'm like, we made this change because it's actually going to make us streamline our workflow. So now we can give you a better service. Like the clients really want us to make sure their taxes are getting done correctly, on time, and quickly. They're not worried about us. They don't want to be like, oh, we're too busy because I'm doing billing and I'm going back and forth with clients answering administrative questions in tax season. So that was like the biggest change that I absolutely super stoked about because I just did it this season. So I'm really happy. Hopefully that answers your question. How did you decide on Financial Sense over other similar tools? Great question. So I'm a huge proponent of learning and going all over to different accounting conferences because I basically want to get a lot of my recommendations from trusted colleagues and friends in the industry. And every time I go to a conference, there's so many vendors and it's a little bit overwhelming. And everyone's like, use our tool, use our tool. But really what helped me change was I'm really close friends with Dawn Brolin. If some of you might be doing her session, I think later this week or next week, but she was telling me how she loved the tool. And that's basically what got me to choose Financial Sense. And that's part of the reason why I made a lot of the choices in technology, because when it's a friend that you trust or a colleague you trust, it feels a little bit different than everyone wants to sell their product, obviously, and say it's awesome, but when a friend tells you, it's just a different level. So hopefully that makes sense. And also there's my e-business card. So if you want to, follow up questions, feel free to scan it. I think it'll all be in the resource center as well. All right, let's go through this question. Hold on, have a sip of water. So each year we use a tax checklist that includes sections for new information, such as adding dependents or updating addresses. It also prompts clients to consider items that we might overlook, like T-slips, donations, medical expense, or rent. I think it's cut off there, but I'm assuming if Financial Sense does the similar thing. We're not using Financial Sense to gather that new data, like they have a new dependent or anything. We're actually using Lacert. So what it does, it perform as last year, and then it leaves blank slots automatically. If they have a new dependent, they're going to manually put that in. If they move, like that's a really important one. Sometimes clients move and they don't tell us and they assume we knew, or they close their bank account. So we want our clients to review their full performed organizer and update it right there on the sheet for us. Hopefully that's helpful. How do you know when the tax documents are uploaded? What is your notification method to check the status? Great question. So this is one of our methods, one of our processes that's still manual that I don't love, but I haven't really been able to solve a good way to automate the process. But essentially what we do is they're going to pay the agreement, project gets created in Financial Sense, email reminder says, hey, upload your tax documents to SmartVault. Then our admin, depending on the volume, maybe each day or each week, is exporting the data from SmartVault, and it shows who uploaded what, and we import them to an Excel file that's constantly growing. And just what's at the bottom, we're basically marking off, all right, this client uploaded it. So now they check off in Financial Sense, all right, this client uploaded their documents. So it's a bit of a manual process, but it prevents us from missing anything, because now when you get that data, every single client is accounted for. Before, we used to forget to mark someone off if they drop documents off, and then the workflow would never begin for them. So I think we're at 1:59. As I said, hopefully this was, all right, we have time for one more question. When there is a task pending for the client, like e-signing a doc, there was a task in the template that said send e-signature request. Is that send the request, or is the place that sits until the client signs? At what point would the task complete? Good question. So what we're gonna send the e-signature request, and since there's no two-way sync with Lacert, we're just gonna go to Lacert. So now, if I every day or let's just say on Fridays, we'll check to see who e-signed their return, and we could sort just by completed e-signatures, and we could just e-file them all, and then we would just check the task in Financial Sense. So we would go back to Financial Sense, but it's just an easier way, because we'll only check it off when it's completed, when the e-signature is actually complete. But yeah, so it's 2:00. I hope. Okay. Do you guys want to see a personalized demo of Financial Sense? Please pick yes or no here. I think the session is recorded. But yeah, if you want to answer this polling question here, this will be the last one before we wrap up. And just know all the resources are in there. The whole presentation will be eventually uploaded to YouTube if you missed it. Hopefully you found this useful, but yeah, I highly recommend just making one change in your tax season. It could save you tons of hours, and you're just gonna have a better tax season. My goal is so us accountants, we don't go into tax season dreading it, and we don't sacrifice 4 months of our year, because I don't think that's a good way to live our life. So I think we should figure out how we could handle tax season, enjoy it, and also give our clients a great experience. And we don't want to burn our teams out. So hopefully this is helpful. Connect with me if you would like, but thanks again for being here. And we have our therapy section next Thursday. So if you have more questions, you could dive in there. So hope to see you.